Okay, let's see. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar about the process approach, what it is, why it's important, and how to do it. My name is Pereira da Cruz, and I'm an author at 𝗂𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀. I do quite a lot of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 consulting and training, as well as auditing as lead auditor. So today I'm going to share with you my thoughts about the process approach. I really love the process approach. And I'm not saying this because I'm presenting this webinar. It's truly one of the most relevant things, even if ISO 9001 didn't exist, okay? My presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, after which we'll do the 20-minute question and answer session. So if you would like to ask a question, you don't have to wait for the Q&A session. You can ask it during my presentation. And of course, in the Q&A session, I also answer all of your remaining questions. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so before we dive into the details, okay, let's set the context. The process approach is not just a theoretical concept. It's a critical discipline for helping organizations achieve their objectives efficiently and effectively. And let me just think how many companies use the process approach for this, okay? It's a critical discipline for helping organizations achieve their objectives efficiently and effectively, okay? So in this webinar, we are going to cover the fundamentals, what the process approach really means, why it's so important, and above all, how to apply it in real practical terms. And this session is designed specially for professionals who are responsible for quality management, process improvement, or regulatory compliance. People who need the process approach not just to pass audits, but to drive real, meaningful performance improvement. Now, let's see the agenda for today. First, we'll see the definition of the process approach, so the main pain points and how to use it in practice, okay? So the process approach requires seeing an organization as a set of interrelated processes. So our next step will be about how to map processes, how to model how an organization works. ISO 9001 is very detailed about process characterization, so that will be our next topic, okay? Then we will see a technique that I use to flowchart a process. Flowcharts are very useful for determining, for example, risks and opportunities and competence needs. Then I want to show you how the process approach must be dynamic. That will be our next topic. And at the end, we will share with you what are the main challenges according to the emails that I received from you, okay? Now, one of the things that will not change with ISO 9001:2026, okay, is the process approach. And I leave here a link to an upcoming webinar about the differences between ISO 9001:2015 and ISO Draft International Standard 2025, okay? So next October 2nd, okay? Now, so the agenda presented, let's see, pain points. Okay, let's be honest. Many of us have heard about the process approach, maybe even trained in it or gone through audits that mention it. But when it comes to actually making it work, things get frustrating. So we hear things like, we mapped all the processes, but nothing changed. This is something I hear a lot. Organizations invest time and effort into creating process maps, but then they just sit on a shared drive, forgotten. No one uses them to manage or to improve the work, okay? So another one that we hear is nobody looks at the process maps. Exactly, yeah, they're created for auditors, not for people doing the work. If a process map doesn't help a team solve a problem or make a better decision, it gets ignored. Oh, people still work in silos, yes, even with beautiful drawn processes. People act based on their departments and on their department goals. There's no flow, just isolated efforts and lots of handoffs where accountability disappears. Or auditors ask us about processes, but we only have procedures. Oh, this one is so common. Many companies confuse having a set of procedures with having a real process-based way of working. But they're not the same. And that's a big part of what we'll explore today. Okay? So, let's clear the air. When we talk about the process approach, there are some persistent myths that keep getting in the way, okay? Keep coming. Processes and procedure are the same. No, wrong answer, okay? This is one of the most common traps. A procedure is a set of instructions, so a document that explains how to perform specific tasks. A process, on the other hand, is the actual flow of activities that transform inputs into an intended outcome, an intended output. So I like to compare a process to running water, okay, from a faucet. So it's about flow and movement. A process is action. So I name processes starting with a verb, okay? Ultimately, a process is not about what we do mechanically. It's about why we do it, achieving a specific, valuable result. Now, that result is the purpose of the process. A process is like a mountain river looking, searching, running to the sea. Okay. So another one that I hear is each department is a process. No, wrong answer. This happens a lot. People think sales is a process, production is a process. No. Departments are structures, not processes. A process typically flows through multiple departments. If you're mapping by department, you're not seeing how work really gets done. Okay, a true process doesn't care about departments. Okay, it crosses departments. It's horizontal. So a classic analogy for what happens in an organization without a process approach is to see the organization as a set of departments, the silos. So silos because each silo only contacts the other silos through the top. Silos because each silo responds to different and conflicting incentives. Silos because people that work in the silos, they don't see the big picture. Now, I remember, and this is really true, I remember examples of companies where the sales department gets unprofitable sales because sales are good for bonuses, even if they are, unprofitable. They would say, oh, that's not my problem. Or purchasing earns big bonuses with the savings achieved, while the rest of the company is plagued with supplier quality problems, delays, or errors. And they say, oh, that's not my problem. We are rewarded for getting the lowest price. The rest for us is secondary. Or production so focused on compliance with the efficiency objectives that they don't care about the agreements with customers. And one last one, or the customer who negotiated special delivery, paid extra for it, hired a team to receive and apply the delivery, and then the delivery is not made because the logistics is valued for minimizing shipping costs. Yeah. So with the process approach, different people, from different departments work together and coordinate to achieve common objectives. And that requires teamwork, common purpose, common benchmark, common objectives. Okay. Now, back to another one is that I hear is processes are only for manufacturing. No, wrong answer. That's another common one. No. Yes, process thinking started in manufacturing, but today it's everywhere in services, public administration, healthcare, education, IT. So if your organization creates value, it does so through processes. And I would argue that the process approach is even more valuable in services than in manufacturing, as services are inherently more abstract, making it more challenging to visualize the flow and detect its issues. So when we draw the flow, we can see it's easier. With manufacturing, we can see things. We go to the shop floor and we see things. Here, no, with services. So processes are streams of value-adding activities crossing functions. This is the key concept. Okay? Think of a process like a river. It flows across the organization, picking up contributions from various people, systems, and areas, all working toward a common result. And procedures may support processes, but processes are about flow and results, okay? Exactly. Procedures help standardize specific steps, but the process is about delivering value, not following documents. So if your process works well, but doesn't match the procedure, it's time to update the document, not the other way around, okay? So next time someone says, we have a procedure for that, ask them, but do we understand the flow? Do we know who contributes and how it performs? That's the process approach. So now I leave here links for 2 articles, okay? So one article is ISO 9001, process versus procedure, some practical examples. And another one is what's your language? Don't confuse processes with procedures, okay? Yeah, don't confuse. Don't make that confusion. So what is the process approach? To use the process approach, an organization should understand and define the processes needed to meet its objectives and integrate them and their interactions into a system that uses risk-based thinking. Okay, so as examples of processes, we may have something like win a project, where we try to win customers, okay? We try to win orders. Win a project, develop a new service, prepare a service, order material, provide service. And then we can see the interrelations and interactions among these processes or between these processes. So because we win a project, we have to develop a new service and order material and prepare the service with information from the development, and then provide the service and learn and send feedback to improve future developments, commercial projects, and service provision, and use the process as a lever to meet desired results, like using the domino effect. So if we want to achieve, to meet an objective, where do we have to act? So for example, so if we want to improve customer satisfaction, we ask, okay, who influences customer satisfaction? What activities in what processes can influence customer satisfaction? So see how I avoid using names of departments to name processes. Okay, win, develop a new service, prepare service. So processes are actions, sets of activities. So I name a process using a verb, okay, and a verb and a noun. Okay, verb for action and noun for what is acted upon by the verb. Okay, and I will explain this, or I will speak about this later, but order material. What is the main result of this process? Material ordered. You see, if we reverse the name of the process, we get the main output of the process. Order material, material ordered. Prepare service, service prepared. Okay, and we run away from departments. Now, how can we map the processes in our company? So let's model an organization as a set of processes. So ISO 9001, clause 4.4.1 states that an organization should determine the processes needed for a QMS. So how can that be done? So this is not the only way, but it's one possibility that I use several times. Okay, so I gather a set of people that know the organization and give them sticky notes and markers. Then I post 2 sticky notes that represent the responsible for the major input in the system, in the company, okay, and the receiver of the major output of the system, of the company. So what actions and activities do you do when going from one extreme into the other? And people use sticky notes, okay, to write things that they remember. I set a rule. One sticky note must have one verb and one noun. Like, for example, receive request for proposal, write proposal, budget proposal, present proposal, or negotiate proposal. Okay. So after that brainstorming, one can start to aggregate sticky notes that belong to a flow of activities. So like the chronological order, or they are part of the same set of activities. Remember, processes are sets of activities. So for example, I can replace the first 5 sticky notes, okay, saying that they belong to a same process that I can call win order. And repeating this technique to other sticky notes, we developed the central sequence. So I can say, okay, plan, production, manufacture, deliver, order. Okay, this is the core of the processes of the organization. So if you think the organization exists to do this, the more the organization does this, the more the organization fulfills its mission. Okay. Now, repeating the technique, we determine the supporting processes. Okay, things like this. Okay, develop product and service, order material, repair the equipment, subcontract order. Okay, and okay, and okay, and we can even put here the relationship with interested parties. Okay, so yeah. Now, remember, by mapping processes, we want to develop a model of how our organization works, okay? Of how and which parts of our organization can be worked in order to meet objectives and to respect constraints. We don't have to put everything. It's a model. So a model, it's that phrase, all models are wrong, some are useful, okay? And it's a model like a map. The map is not the same size as the territory, okay? It's a simplification, okay? Don't forget that. So this is the heart of the organization. These are the main processes everybody is working to support these processes because they serve clients, they serve customers. Now, these are the supporting processes. They exist to serve the main processes. You know that winter sport called curling? Everybody in the organization is mopping the floor, to reduce friction, to facilitate customer service, to facilitate the flow in that central set of processes. Now, what is missing here? So we have the core processes, the supporting processes. Now we need the brain of the organization. It is here the direction is set, objectives are set, performance is monitored, and decisions made. For naming processes, I run away from department names as much as possible because a process is flow, a process is horizontal, a process cross departments, a process doesn't care about departments. So for naming processes, I try to use the following rule: process, win order. What is the major outcome of that process? A order was won. So process, deliver, order. What is the major outcome of that process? A order delivered. So the name of the process, reversed, identifies the main output of the process. And by the way, for naming processes, I try to use singular names like win order, not win orders, because I think it helps people to focus in a particular outcome, in a particular situation, okay? Now, I leave here the link for an article called How to Create an ISO 9001 Process Flowchart, okay? Okay, so now, characterizing a process. So let's use the help of ISO 9001, clause 4.4.1 and 4.4.2 to characterize a process. We have a process like this one, so-called order material. First, what are the inputs that trigger the start of the process and who supplies them? And what are the outputs of the process and who receives them? Then we can think about what methods should be followed to work, to control, and to monitor. So methods for doing the activities, working, for controlling, inputs, the in process and outputs, and the monitoring about the results, about the outputs. Okay, so how many people, okay, in what functions and with what competence are needed, what kind of resources are needed, materials, equipment, monitoring devices. Now, this is what is well known as the turtle diagram. Okay, so now what happens between the inputs and the outputs? That's the topic of the next slide. But before that, and let's be clear, we need to be very clear about who leads the process. And this is not easy. This is really difficult in many companies because, you know, I said a process crosses departments. If you ask who is the leader of this department and this department and this department, it's easy. But if you have a process that crosses several departments, you know, who is the owner of the process? Who leads the process? And because who leads the process has power over the leaders of the department. And that's not easy. That's very, very difficult, okay? Now, sometimes you may hear or read about SIPOC. SIPOC. That's because of this. Who are the suppliers, inputs, process, so main activities, outputs, and customers. Now, I leave here the link for two articles. How links between processes can increase level of quality, okay? And the other one is ISO 9001, the importance of the process approach. Now, let me just show you here. So, you will find all necessary documents and records in our ISO 9001 Premium Toolkit. Let me show you how it looks like. Okay, so this is the list of all the documents that we have in our Premium Documentation Toolkit. So I will show this one. Okay, sales procedure. We have this one, procedure for purchasing and evaluation of suppliers. So we have procedures, we have forms, we have guidelines. Yeah, and I will show you also this one, procedure for measuring customer satisfaction, for example. Okay, now let's see. Let me show you this procedure for the sales procedure. Okay, so this procedure is used to document instructions about how to perform a process. Okay, so let's see, process flow. Okay, so I have here the process flow: sending orders, receiving and recording, customer request review, format. It's can organization meet customer requirements? No. Goes back. Yes. Formulating a contract. Changes after format, and you have here the sequence. Okay, and then you have here. This is a Word document. You can customize this document to your reality. You can what is the job title in your organization that does this, that receives the customer's request, evaluates completeness and definition of requests. So you can change, you can customize this to your reality. And we have also, another example is this kind of forms, okay? So if your organization uses electronic databases, okay, then you can translate this appendix to your database and use the same kind of information, okay? Yeah, okay. Now we have here two questions that I will answer now. One question is from Mary. Mary asked, is there a specific format for developing and implementing the PDCA process approach in an organization? So is there a specific format for developing and implementing the PDCA process approach in an organization? No. ISO 9001 does not prescribe a specific format. Organizations are free to design their own approach as long as the PDCA cycle is applied and processes are managed effectively, okay? Another question is it mandatory requirement for an organization to develop and document SOPs for its processes? No. Documented procedures, SOPs, are not mandatory. What is required is to determine and control processes. with the necessary documented information to ensure effective operation and evidence of conformity. Okay, we have here another question from Esther. Esther asked, what simple steps should a small organization start with to apply the process approach effectively? And what red flags show that the process is not well managed or aligned? So about what simple steps should a small organization start with to apply the process approach, I would say, okay, determine the main processes. So that map, okay, determine the main processes. Then define the inputs and outputs. Assign ownership. Make one person responsible for each process. Set simple indicators. Measure effectiveness. So does it deliver what's needed? And efficiency. So does it achieve the purpose with minimal waste? Okay. Then apply the PDCA. Plan, operate, check results, and improve continually. About red flags. Okay. Red flags that the process is not well managed, not well aligned. So unclear ownership. Nobody feels responsible for the outcome. Common problem. No defined outputs. The result is inconsistent or not understood. Frequent firefighting, recurring problems instead of stable performance. No measures. Success, failure is based on opinion, on rhetoric, on oratory skills, not evidence. Disconnect between processes, okay, so delays, rework, or handovers failing. And customer complaints, yeah, the outputs don't meet the requirements, yeah. Now, flow charting a process. Well, let me go back. So what happens between the inputs and the outputs, okay? Now, I use a common presentation software to draw flowcharts. More important than the software are the rules that you set to lay out process flow. So I use this frame, okay, to draw and read flowcharts more easily. So I draw 4 areas for inputs, for main steps, for control, and for records. So I also add some swim lanes to consider functions and their responsibility, authority, collaboration, and information. That's what we call the RACI matrix. So let's see the process. So let's consider the example of a common process in an IT service company. So resolve incident. So this process is often critical in IT service companies, focusing on resolving IT issues effectively and efficiently. So the process starts when a user detects an incident, system outage, a performance issue that triggers the trigger that starts the process, okay? And the first step is to log the incident details in the incident tracking system. The service desk does that. The incident is classified and the priority is attributed. So like high, medium, low priority. Then the service desk team leader carries out an initial diagnosis and checks if the incident requires escalation. This can lead to 2 separate paths. Yes, escalate to high-level support team. No, continue with the resolution. For escalated incidents, an in-depth investigation by a specialized team takes place. And then comes resolution and recovery to implement a fix and recover service. And finally, we have the last step, closing the incident. Confirm resolution with user and close incident. Okay. So who is responsible for each step? Who has authority? Who collaborates? And who is informed when needed? Okay. So don't be surprised if while drawing the flowchart and especially deciding responsibilities and authorities spark heated debate and plenty of uncertainty. That's perfectly normal, and you're not the only ones facing it. You are not alone. And the heated debates, okay, the heated debate is a symptom that the flowcharting exercise is emerging from a serious or is making coming to surface a series of misunderstandings and disconnections that are alive in the organization. So when we realize that, okay, now something is positive is already coming out of the exercise, okay? Now, flowcharts are very useful to determine risks and opportunities. So look into this flowchart. Let's start with some critical questions. What can go wrong in our current process? Take a moment to think about this. Why might we not meet our intended results? Why do we not avoid undesirable results? Why are we not able to avoid undesirable results? Now, gather a team of participants in the process, include some internal customers of the process and perhaps also some internal suppliers of the process, and graph process performance reports, and ask, okay, what are the process risks? So, for example, failure to correctly detect or identify an incident, incomplete or incorrect logging of incident details, incorrectly classifying or prioritizing the incident, ineffective diagnosis, okay, delay or failure in escalating, insufficient resources or expertise, implementing incorrect or incomplete fixes, inadequate communication regarding incident status and resolution, and failing to resolve the incident fully or not confirming resolution with the user. Okay, and this risk determination, okay, followed by risk evaluation, may be the basis for your organization to rethink technical training, communication skills, and the number of personnel. So the exercise is not done in the abstract, but with your feet on the ground, with the help of the flowchart. Now, Richard asked, required process controls. So if you do this, evaluate these risks, perhaps not all these yellow boxes, not all our risks are relevant, but for those that are relevant, okay, or significant, you can start planning how to mitigate or control the risk and the process. For example, provide better training or improve diagnosis quality, provide more resources or expertise in higher level support teams. And 𝗲𝗏𝗶𝘀 asked about risk management. Is it mandatory an action plan? Okay, ISO 9001 does not require a mandatory action plan to manage risks. Okay, however, it is a good practice that I recommend. Okay, now I said that the flowchart is very good for determining risks and opportunities. So in this case, just we only speak about the risks, but also very good to determine competence requirements. So let's use the example of the process resolve incident to show how to make the relationship between processes and competence requirements using users and service desk as an example. So what kind of knowledge and experience does he or she have to have to be a competent worker? So for users, something like this: awareness of standard operations and ability to recognize deviations. For the service desk, something like basic technical knowledge, alertness to anomalies, familiarity with monitoring tools. So you need to know some tech stuff, being quick to spot when things look weird or wrong, and knowing how to use the program that check on the tech systems. Detail-oriented approach, good communication skills, basic IT and troubleshooting knowledge, proficiency in using incident tracking systems, understanding of incident categories and severity levels, okay, ability to assess urgency and impact. And you can translate this into education, training, and experience like this. So, for example, on-the-job training in the incident tracking system, okay, to allow that basic technical knowledge, alertness to this one here, to get that detail-oriented approach, good communication skill. This one here to understanding and ability to. And you see, we developed this not with brainstorming, not a free brainstorming, or not with what do you want? What is, but looking into the process, looking into the activities, and thinking like something like, for someone to be independent, to be autonomous doing this log incident in the support desk, what kind of training, experience, education is needed, particularly training. Okay. Now, Angela asked, In what ways can we evidence the requirement organizational knowledge? Okay, you can evidence clause 7.1.6 organizational knowledge with documenting know-how like manuals, SOPs, work instructions, databases, intranet, lessons learned reports. You can employee expertise, okay, skills matrix, training records, certifications, mentoring programs, job descriptions. So you can evidence employee expertise with that. You can evidence knowledge sharing with internal workshops, onboarding programs, communities of practice. You can evidence captured experience by post-project reviews, okay, non-conformity incident reports, continual improvement logs, and retention mechanisms. So something like succession planning, backup roles, knowledge transfer before retirement or exit. Yeah. So I leave here a link for the article, How to Manage Knowledge of the Organization According to ISO 9001. And by the way, let's be honest. How many organizations actually define competence requirements based on the process approach? People don't just need job titles or generic skills, okay? They need to know how to act and how to behave while carrying out the specific activities of a process. Or in my country, it's something like, oh, they need to speak English and they need to use Excel, yeah? And they need one or two more things. And oh, come on, that's not what's supposed to make the process effective. Okay, now let's go to speak about the process performance. Okay, whenever you look into the purpose of a process, so like this one, restore. What is the purpose of the process resolve incident? Restore normal service operations as quickly as possible while minimizing the impact on the business operations and ensuring that the best possible service quality and availability levels are maintained. Okay, the company, the organization decided that this is the purpose of the process. So when we look into the process, we can think about sets of measures, KPIs. How can we know if this is blah, 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 or is true? Okay, so KPIs allow you to monitor process performance and determine what really matters for effectiveness. So in this case, you may have something like mean time to resolve. Okay, so the average time it takes to resolve an incident after it has been reported. Cost per incident, so the average cost incurred in resolving each incident. And service level agreement compliance rate. Okay, the percentage of incidents resolved within the time frames stipulated by the SLAs. Okay, so these KPIs are about the purpose of the process. But if you look into the flowchart, okay, you can think about other possibilities. So if you look into the flowchart, you will identify KPIs that are related with efficiency. So, for example, in this one here, escalation, if resolved at on the first attempt, okay, the ratio of the no and yes will provide you an idea. If there are too many escalations, perhaps we need to improve the training of the people that are doing the initial diagnosis to avoid that. We need to ask this team to act more and more. And if we don't solve the problem on the first attempt, so another ratio here means that, okay, something is wrong, something needs to be improved here. Okay, and okay, yeah, the end. So for many companies, this is the real story behind their process approach. They proudly model the company as a set of processes, document everything neatly, and even assign a few indicators. And then silence. Yeah, it seems the end of the story. Those beautiful process maps, where are they? Oh, they gather dust in a forgotten shared folder, just waiting to be revived at the next audit when the auditors ask for them. Yeah. That's why let me share a real-world example from a CDMO company, a contract development and manufacturing organization. So during their annual management review, so monitoring and measurement analysis, and now during the management review where they do evaluation, okay, they set a clear quality objective to improve physical productivity. You see, Black Box is the company as a whole, and one of the objectives for the whole, one of the quality objectives is improve productivity. Okay, so they have an objective, an overall objective, and now they want to change things inside the company, inside the box, to be able to achieve the objective. Cool. They knew productivity wasn't where it should be, but they didn't stop at intuition. They applied the process approach. So they conducted a Pareto analysis to identify where the biggest problems were coming from. So the reasons for stopping bottling lines. And the result was interesting. The main contributors to low production efficiency weren't just on the shop floor. The issues traced back to three key processes: develop the product and service. So problems in all the services, in all the service was designed for each customer. Order material, issues with material availability, and manufacture order, the actual execution in production. So in other words, bottling line performance wasn't just about operators working harder or faster. It was about improving the entire chain of activities that feed into production success. The process approach is a management principle that views an organization as a system of interrelated processes rather than isolated functions. So it focuses on understanding how inputs are transformed into outputs, how processes interact, and how their performance contributes to achieving objectives. Truth is, I don't see many organizations following the process approach like this, okay? Now, we already have a starting point. So we have the current flow chart that describes how the process works. So the current process delivers the current results that we don't like, okay? So if you want better results in the future, we need to change something in the process. That the process is not innocent. It's perfectly designed to deliver exactly the results and the problems that we are experiencing with productivity. So we need to ask, what pains, what problems have we identified? So these issues don't appear out of thin air, okay? They are generated somewhere along the flow by the way we currently work. So each problem is like a hurdle, standing between today's performance and the performance we want. So for every problem, we must determine its root cause or causes hidden inside the process. And for each root cause, we define the actions that will eliminate it. And these actions are not just isolated fixes. They will update the process itself. They will change the way we work. And when the way we work changes, we also need to update the documents that describe the process and train people on the new way of doing things. So this is how a process becomes dynamic. Problems drive actions, actions reshape processes, and updated processes create better results. It's a never-ending story. You see, what I see organizations that try to improve and actually do improvements, okay, but they don't link this to the processes that they have. Yeah. Now, okay, so based on questions that I received from you before this webinar, these are the main challenges for those working with the process approach. So integrate risk and process approach, mapping, flowcharting a process, integrate audits with the process and risk-based approach, and apply the process approach effectively. So during the Q&A, I will answer questions about integrate audits with the process approach and risk-based approach. And also, Francis, I will try to answer to your question about the processes in an hospital, okay? Now, let's go to the conclusion. So to conclude, as you can see, the process approach is foundational and very useful in implementing ISO 9001. And for that purpose, you can use 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀's ISO 9001 Premium Documentation Toolkit So here's the link with more details. Okay. I'll also send you now the meeting link to schedule a call with our toolkit expert. He'll explain you how toolkit works and show you any document you'd like to see. So here's the toolkit expert meeting link. Okay. All right. So let's go to the Q&A. So some of you requested some tips about how to implement the QMS. So we in 𝗵𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀 developed a course for all that want to implement a management system for their organization or as external consultants. The video lectures are free. Perhaps they could help. So I'll leave you the links for two courses. The ISO 9001 Foundations course is about the clauses, the requirements of the standard, and the ISO 9001 Lead Implementer course about implementing a management system. So, okay, let's see other questions. Francis asked, can you suggest some processes and procedures in an hospital? So I will speak about processes, okay? So what I normally see in organizations, in hospitals, okay, is that an hospital normally is a big organization. So what I normally see is that they start with a smaller part of the organization, like, for example, the blood service or x-rays or ambulatory. So they start with that, and then year after year they are integrating and they are growing the management system, because I think when hospital they try to do it at everything at the same time, it will not work, because it's a lot of work. So for example, about x-rays, okay, about x-rays, think about the process. Someone comes, someone schedule the operation or the activity for the x-ray, scheduling, planning, receiving the person, checking the information, then performing the x-ray, then delivering, sending the information or to that person. So it's this, okay? That's what I'm just trying to describe is the core set of central processes, okay? Then we can think about, okay, what is needed for those processes to work well? What do we need? So we may need, okay, what we do to have the right people, the right people, trained people, competent people on the job. What do we do in order to have the equipment working safely, without breakdowns, without radiation problems? Okay, that's another one. We can think about also, what more? But it's the logic, okay? It's this logic, Francis, okay? Clara asked, definition of process and standard. Okay, process is a set of interrelated or interacting activities that transform inputs into outputs, okay? Creating value for a customer or an interested party. And the standard is an agreed set of requirements, specifications, or guidelines established by consensus and approved by a recognized body to ensure consistent quality, safety, or performance. And many asked how to integrate the approach to other systems like energy, environmental, health and safety, and data security. My answer is use the same process approach. So map core and support processes once, then identify which requirements apply to each, okay? Apply one PDCA cycle, plan, operate, check, and improve processes in an integrated way, not separately for each system. Align policies and objectives, so create a single set of policies and goals that reflect quality, environmental, energy, safety, and data security priorities. Common risk-based thinking, identify and assess risks and opportunities once, uncovering all perspectives, safety, quality, environment, a unified documented information, integrated audits and reviews. So for example, let's see here in this one here. Okay, so in this slide, we have inputs and we have outputs. And we have here also results and records. Okay, the results could be, we are, for example, order materials. And during this process, for example, there are some environmental aspects or health and safety aspects. And we can integrate here. So, for example, when we are receiving the material in the warehouse, okay, what environmental aspects or what health and safety issues, what risks and dangers, and we can relate that with that process. Okay. Now I have here a link for an article called, let me see. Okay, how to implement integrated management systems. Okay. Now, I have here 2 slides. One slide is Tenoreo asked, how do you link the processes with a quality management system with the clauses of the ISO 9001 standard? Okay, I'm going to present this one here. So for development, I would link this to clause 8.3, 6.1, 7, or in the organization on knowledge management. Okay, 8.3, 6.1, 7.1.6. So that are the main clauses related with that. About the commercial area, so customer focus, clause 5.1.2, 8.2, requirements for products and services, and 9.1.2, customer satisfaction. This one here about the ordering materials and subcontract order, so control of external providers, 8.4, communication, 7.4, monitoring suppliers, control of non-conforming output. About the planning and the manufacturing, okay, 8.5, production service provision, release of products, control of non-conforming output. And repaired equipment, 7.1.3, 7.1.4, and this, and here, lead the organization, something like management review, context, management responsibilities, policy, risks, objectives, quality objectives, planning changes, resources, monitoring, and improvement. And here I would link people, knowledge management, and competence and awareness also. Okay. And another question was from Natalie. Natalie, 2 questions. Natalie and Costas. Natalie asked how to apply the process approach when auditing, particularly in terms of identifying process interactions, inputs and outputs, and assessing how well these processes contribute to achieving the organization's quality objectives. And Costas asked, how can we integrate the process and the risk-based approach in an audit? So think with me. You are auditing an organization that is very disciplined. They normally follow the procedure, okay, the SOPs, okay, and they are certified for more than 5 years. If you continue to do the same kind of audits that were very important at the beginning, so just checking, are they following the procedure? Are they doing things? Okay. Now the value added is not very good. So now it's much more important to ask this kind of questions that we see here. So about the purpose. So when you start auditing a process, you can ask, what is the purpose of this process? Who is the owner and who are the main users? Which quality objectives does it support? Contributes to what? About the inputs and outputs. What are the key inputs and sources? What are the expected outputs and the recipients? How is conformity of inputs and outputs verified? And for example, if you see that there's a lot of problems in the output or in the or during the operation that may be related with non-conformities in the inputs, you should ask, okay, is your approach to control the conformity of the inputs effective? You can audit process interactions. So with which processes does this one interact? Are handovers clear? Are any recurring issues or bottlenecks? So for that kind of company, that CDMO's company, for example, typical, okay, the development and the production, okay, because they are developing products with a high frequency, and so it's very easy to have problems. Not all information passes to production, for example. The handovers are not clear. So recurring issues are bottlenecks. Performance and effectiveness, what indicators monitor this process? Are targets achieved? So is this process efficient? Is this process effective? Risks and opportunities, what risks affect intended results? What opportunities for improvement exist? How are risks monitored and mitigated? So what risks affect intended results? What opportunities for improvement exist? How are risks monitored and mitigated? And continual improvement. What improvements have been made recently? I like this one. What improvements have been made recently? How are lessons learned captured? Are corrective actions addressing causes? Oh, this one too, I like this one. Are corrective actions addressing causes? In my checklist, I write something like, are they doing corrective actions? And then I ask again to myself, are they really corrective actions? Are they going after the causes, the root cause, or they are just doing corrections? Okay. Now, more questions. Anna asked, how do you manage the records of the process risk? Because this can also link to the organization context. Do you also have to define an action plan to all the risks per process, or only to the ones that impact the organization? Oh, Anna, if you can check the recording of the webinar about the risk, okay, the risks and opportunities. I have there an example also where I use the flowchart, and what I show is that, so it's this one here, I think. Yeah. So whatever, if this risk is important, okay, if this risk is important, what we can do is, what is the action to mitigate the risk of this from happening, or reducing the frequency for this from happening? So the action can be, we will provide training to the person that is doing this activity, and we will update the job description with the competence requirements to put that new training there. So by doing that, we are documenting the action plan, or not the action plan, but we are documenting the control, okay, that we created to minimize or to mitigate the risk. Okay, so your question is, because it's not mandatory to do this, but I like to have, in the companies that I work with, we do have a register for risks, and that register for risks, we have, normally what I'd like to do is, we have a register for the main risks, so the risks related with the context. Okay, again, the webinar about the clause 4, where we relate the clause 4.1, 4.2, and the organizational risks. So these are the risks more general. And I like to also document in another kind of register for processes, to document the risks of the processes. Some organizations, what we do is, in a document that we create to document the process, we include there also the risks, the risk register, but then we realize that that's not very feasible to put there, because then we are updating the document too many times. So no, we don't do that anymore. But yes, I think we should define action plan to the risks for processes. Okay. Also, let me see if I have any more questions. One more question. Oh, Isabella, Will there be very big changes, differences from 2015 to 2026? Okay, Isabella, you will see. I can next October 2nd, we will have here a new webinar about the differences between 9001 2015 and the 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 draft international standard. So you can see right away in the chat, okay, the link for that webinar. Okay, now if there are big differences, there are some differences. Now I can tell you, for example, the ones about the ethical and about quality culture for leadership, about awareness. People, it's not just about knowing the procedures and knowing the objectives, but also knowing the quality culture. Um, uh, about organizational knowledge is not just about the conformity of product or service, but about achieving the audit objectives. The audit objectives that the company intended results. Um, I consider very important that one about the change of the audit objectives, because currently the standard has no doesn't mention audit objectives. And so what people do is that they emulate, so they automatically repeat what normally certification auditors do. It's just audit compliance. So audit objectives it's interesting. So, for example, another thing. There's another thing I think it's interesting. It's, for example, in my country, when you want to know something about your supplier or your customer, one of the things that you may do is ask the driver that brings the stuff to work, or is coming but it's coming to our organization. We ask questions, and people speak freely about, okay, we know a lot of things from the supplier or from the customer, just asking the driver, because the driver knows a lot of things. Sometimes the driver doesn't belong to the company, so it's from a logistic company. And so, for example, one of the changes in clause 8.4 is about that. So about taking care about that, looking about how do we want to manage the interactions, okay, of our suppliers with our interested parties. So it's interesting, but yeah, we'll speak about that during the webinar in next October 2nd. Okay, so yeah, I think we don't have any more questions. Normally, when I say this, then someone appears with one more last question, and I don't have any more time. But okay, I think all questions were answered. As I mentioned, this 1-hour webinar is too brief to cover details in depth. So for more comprehensive insights, please check out our articles, okay? You can ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly by email. You can also download this presentation deck from our website, or take a look at video tutorials and documentation templates. We'll send you the email with all necessary links, okay? Finally, if you join this webinar through Zoom, you'll see a short survey. So I would kindly ask to you to spend a minute to fill it in. The recording of this presentation will be available in a few hours. You will receive a link to the recording. If you join the webinar through LinkedIn and YouTube, you will receive a link to the short survey now, and the link to the presentation will be posted on our event page in a few minutes. Okay, that will be all. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your questions, and I hope